Hi, this is Jeremy Schoonmaker, Pre-Sales Technical Consultant with the Channel MPS Group. In this video, we're going to be talking about the driver configuration utility. The driver configuration utility is part of the PARC tool, or the Print Administrator's Resource Kit. You can download the PARC tool. On the same page, you can download the Universal Print Driver. So here's the download for the driver, and down here is the Print Administrator's Resource Kit. This is a group of tools that you can utilize to help administer the Universal Print Driver more easily in your environment. So one of the tools that we're going to be talking today about is the driver configuration utility. You see there's a bunch of different tools in here, but DCU is what we're going to be looking at. Now the driver configuration utility allows you to pre-configure a driver before you install it, and then any print queue you create afterwards with that pre-configured driver is going to have the settings that you set up. So I want to give you just an overview of how this is going to work in a couple different ways. So the first thing is we're going to, in the driver configuration utility, open it, and you're going to browse to one of the Universal Print Driver folders. Now these are the folders that are going to appear after you've extracted from what you download online. Okay, so these are usually have about 84 files in them, and what we're looking for is this .cfg file, or a config file. So we can open that, and then in this tool we can go through here and make changes to the default configuration. Okay, there's a lot of different options here, and I'm not going to go over most of them. For today, all we're going to really play with is just some basic settings that people use. A lot of times print on both sides and print in grayscale are options that people want to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change one of these configurations, okay, from print on both sides from false to true. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it, and how you save it is kind of important. I'm just going to do a straight save, which is overwriting the original config file. Now if I do that, when I go to install the driver, so I'm going to go ahead and go through this process of adding the driver. When I install the driver, what's actually going to happen is you're going to see it fail. Because what's happened is because I've overridden one of the original driver files, the signature of the driver is now a little bit messed up, right? It doesn't match what Microsoft accepted originally when we did our driver certification. So what you should see when I install this is a pop-up that says, hey, this driver is no longer signed, right? The signature doesn't match what Microsoft accepted. Now you can install the driver anyway. And if you do that, when you create print queues, again, it'll have the configuration you want. So if you don't mind having the signature fail, then you can go ahead and use this method. Most customers I see do not like that. And so what we do is instead of saving it as a CFG file, and I'm going to move to a different directory here, is we can save it as this .cfm file, okay? So we've opened up the original CFG, we've made our changes, I've changed it here to print in grayscale as enabled, and I've locked that in, and then I went to save as, and saved it as locked grayscale, and then I typed in manually this extension .cfm. So this is like a modified configuration file. Okay, so that exists now, and the original configuration file is still intact, so that the driver signature is still intact. Now, here comes the tricky part, is you need to figure out how to call that new configuration file when you do the install. So there's two ways to do that I'll show you. The first is that if you save it with kind of a generic name, you can save it anywhere that you want to, and then you can use a command line install. And that's what I'm doing here. Now I've pulled out all the switches here for these from the HP Universal Print Driver Administrator's Guide. So I don't have all these memorized, but there's a number of them in here just to make this easy for my demonstration. But the key is this one right here. It's the first one. It's the /GCFM, okay? And then I open quotes and I point to the path that leads to that modified CFM file. Okay, the rest of this is just creating a print queue and doing it in quiet mode. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run that, and that'll take a minute or so to install, and I'm going to let that go, and I'll show you what the result is. Okay, so that's one way to do it, is using the install.exe. The next way to do it, and I'm going to go ahead and again go to a new directory here, if I go to this one, is when I open this, and again, I'm just going to make a quick change to it. Again, I'll just do duplex and change that to true, and I'll lock in. Okay, one of the cool things about driver configuration utility is you can lock some of these settings in. When I go to Save As, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save it with the same name as the original CFG file, except with the new extension. So HPCPU240.CFM. Each version of the Universal Print Driver has a different number here, 215, 220, 230, whatever it is. So this PCL6 6.9.0 has the number 240. So that's a unique identifier there. So I'm going to save that, and I can just save that for the meantime here in the directory. So I have that CFM file saved, and now what I actually have to do is I have to find that file. So here it is in directory, and I'm going to copy that over, and I'm going to paste it in this subdirectory in the Windows system files. So that's Windows System 32, Spool, Drivers, x64, and then 3. So this is the 3 folder where a lot of these the DLLs and driver files are held. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste this in here. And then once I paste that in there, I can go and just do the standard install that I'm used to, and it'll pull that file. So we'll do that in just a second. So let me first of all go back. My command line install should be finished. Here's the driver. It was a UPD 6.7 when I did that on the command line. And my printer, here's my locked gray test. Let me go to the properties, and you should see that my color is now locked into grayscale. Okay, so that worked correctly, right, using the command line install. Now I'm going to go and do the 6.9 install. So I'm going to add driver, and this will work even if it's already pre-installed, but I'm going to go through the same process anyway. So I'm going to go to the 6.9 folder that I had originally. I'm going to choose my INF. Okay, go through the normal driver install process. Okay, so that's now installed, and it should have looked for that CFM in that 3 folder. So now here I'm going to add a quick printer so that we can verify if that worked or not. I'm going to make sure to use that driver. I'm just going to call this DCU test for now. And this will take just a second to install. And again, what we should see is the choice that I made, which was to lock in duplex, we should see in this print queue. So here is my DCU test. I'm going to go to Properties. It's just going to ping the device and get some information about it really quick. And then we'll check the printing preferences and see if that worked. All right. So we'll check on the preferences. We'll go to finishing, and you see that print on both sides is now checked, and it's locked in place, so users can't change it. So again, that worked. So just to review, you can pre-config any of these drivers, and then any queue you create will have the configuration you just created. And there's 3 ways to save those files off. One is to override the original config file, the .cfg, but you end up breaking the certificate or the signing of that driver. The second way is to save it as a CFM file of any name and then call it using the command line install. And then the third way is to save it as a CFM with the same name as the original config file and then put it in the 3 folder and then go through a standard driver install. So those are the ways that you can use driver configuration utility and install print queues with those pre-configured drivers.